Okay, so she showed me the birth certificate or baptism, and I said, big deal. I said, so you're a little bit older than I am. So we continued to go, and then we started to get serious. We'd go to the San Antonio River. We went to the San Antonio River. There's a beautiful river that runs through downtown. You have a lot of parades and fiestas. And we'd go, I'd take her for a ride on my dad's truck, which was a 1932 Nash, that he cut the back end of it and made it into a pickup. So she didn't mind getting in a truck, and we'd go for a ride out in the woods. And I remember one day we went to see the shrine of the Virgin of Lourdes, and we were holding hands. And I told her, honey, I says, in front of this virgin, I'm promising you, I'm going to marry you. I says, in front of this virgin, I'm promising you that you will never work a day in your life. In front of this virgin, I'm promising you that you will never want for anything, even if I have to work 2 jobs. All I want from you, if we have family, is that you keep my children clean and my house clean, and that'll be your task. I'd move the sky and the earth if she was here for me today. We were married almost 64 years, and in Spanish we have the saying we call the wife vieja, and the wife calls the husband viejo, old man. She never did once call me viejo, and never did I ever call her vieja. It was either babe or honey.
Yeah, it was.
So
So
I
you,
had a wonderful wife.
so you proposed to her what year? Was it 51? 50?
1951.
Okay.
Oh, yes. When we got serious and got married, we didn't have a fancy wedding. She had just lost her father in August of 1949. Then she lost her mother in December of 1949. So it was her and her sister Mona that were living in the house by themselves, and they were taking care of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we we couldn't plan a big wedding. So all we had was my uncle was the best man. My tia was the maiden of honor, the first,
Maid of honor.
uh-huh. And then Lupe was her name, was the maiden of honor. David Sanchez, one of our nephews, he was about 4. He was a ring bearer, and a little girl from one of her friends was a flower girl. That's all we had. We didn't have a saloon. We didn't have no fun. All we did, my mother and my aunts, they did all the cooking in the backyard of her house. And that's the simple wedding that we had. But To me, those were sacred years because when I told her that I loved her, I meant it. I told her we're going to get married, and I promise I'm going to take care of you, and I did. I used to work sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, but she never worked a day in her life.
So
Just,
you, sorry.
just so that she could take care. I'd come home from work, and as soon as I turned the corner, I'd see my 4 kids, all nice and clean, raggedy clothes, but they were nice and clean. I could eat off the house floor if I had to. So what else could I ask for?
You were married September
September the 3rd on a Labor Day,
of 51.
1951. Rachel, my daughter, was born June the 17th, 1952. Juan, the second one, was born in January the 17th, 1954.
Was Sam born in Texas?
Sam was born here.
Okay, so before we get to Sammy, let's talk about that. Because at this point, it's 1956 when Rosemary was born, right?
Rosemary was born in 1956,
Okay.
June the 14th, in
So,
San Antonio, Texas.
and so by this time, you're still doing work in Texas, but this is where the biggest change, one of the biggest changes
Yeah.
of all, starts to happen.
Well, what happened, since I had a cousin, first cousin, and he owned a bar, I'd get home, get off from work, and I'd go to the bar with the intentions of having only one beer. Okay, so I'd go in behind the bar like if I was going into my own refrigerator. I'd bring out the beer and I'd start drinking it. And then all of a sudden, a friend of mine would come in and he'd say, he'd tell my cousin, dame dos cervezas, give me 2 beers. So he'd give me one and he'd have one and we'd be drinking and I wanted to go home. But by that time, maybe 3 or 4 more would get there. Well, it's impolite to just drink and run. So by the time you make 1 or 2 rounds, that means about 12, 14 beers that you had. And it was getting to the point where I never lost respect for my wife. Don't get me wrong. I never threatened to hit her. I never threatened to throw her out or to do without. We had an understanding. Saturday morning, she'd get up, she'd take a bath there in San Antonio, get dressed, and go and meet her girlfriends. And they'd go out for lunch and go window shopping, and they'd get home by around 5 o'clock. As soon as, by the time they got there, then I'd jump in the shower and take a bath and shave and get my clothes, and then I'd leave for the night. But she was entitled to some time off too. We we had a wonderful relation in the sense that she never hollered at me. We did have arguments. There's no marriage in existence that can say I've never had an argument. But I tell the young people nowadays, before you go to bed, regardless how small or big the argument is, you kiss your wife good night and tell her, sweetheart, I see you tomorrow. And you'll find out that that argument wasn't even worth the powder it was in. But if you let that argument and you go to bed with an argument, you wake up with an argument, the argument is worse. It's like a sore. It starts to fester. So I'm telling all of them in the future generation that may see this, kiss and make up, and you'll find out it works. What I was thinking about it, I told you that you guys have the strongest thumbs in the world because of the computers. But you go into the forest and you'll get lost. I'm going to tell you what my day consisted of when I was about age 7. It was at the height of the Depression, and we had to walk to school in the rain, mud, and cold. And we'd walk, me and my good friend, Jimmy Medina, we'd take our shoes and we put them over our shoulders and walk barefooted. When we were close to the school, we washed our feet with the water running from the creeks or from the streets, put our shoes on so that they wouldn't make fun of us. As soon as school was out, off come the shoes and barefooted again. As soon as I'd get home, the first thing I'd do is would take the axe, take the file, and make sure it was nice and sharp. And I just used to cut mesquite wood. I'd cut it and split it and everything. I'd have it under the house, under the bed, under the stove. Once I had enough wood, then I'd get a bucket and I'd go and we had a wood stove, and on the side of the stove it had a round tank of maybe about 10 gallons, and I used to fill it up with water, and the heat from the stove would keep the water hot. I'd take the ashes out, and then I'd go to my uncle because he was in bed with tuberculosis, so he couldn't work. I'd do the same thing: cut wood, stack it, and even take the bassinet out to the one holder and dump it and wash it out and take it for him. Then after that, we'd go to the corner. We used to call the place Pantas Gang. And it was about 30 of us that used to get there. And we'd meet. There was no street lights then. And we'd start talking. And then pretty soon we'd start talking about ghosts and headless men and things like this. So pretty soon it was real dark. And everybody would start leaving, and the girl would say, Juan, take me with you. Take me to my house, will you please? Because I have to pass right there where the man without the head is. So I would do that, take them and deliver all of them. And we never looked for fights, but we never run away from them. Up to this moment, I never run away from a fight. So I started to tell you, it was about 4 days before Juan's 57, 3 years old. I told my baby, honey, I can't promise you, but I'm going to move to California to see if I can find a job so that maybe I can change my life around. Here I got too many friends, too many beers. And your memo told me, if you go, if you find a job, you come and get us, and we'll go with you. That's the reason I'm in California, which I think was one of the best moves I ever made.
Well, I'm gonna change so I can. It absolutely it was one of the best moves because not only was it important for you in order to be able to provide for your family, but knowing the family history like I do now, I don't know how it would have gone had you stayed in Texas.
That's it. That's what I
Because
was
look at
afraid of.
when you look at your siblings are the best
Yeah.
example of that. I mean, in the troubles and the relationship issues they've had over the years, you have to sometimes. I mean, you made the best. You did what you were supposed to. You made the best choice.
Yes.
You went with it.
So I got here on a Friday. A friend of mine, he already had a job for us, for Homer, Raul, and myself. Demolition of houses. And they were houses that were up in the Hollywood Hills. They were mansions, but they were tearing them down to make duplex.
Right.
So the guy told me, the owner, he says, you can have all the iron, all the brass, everything. All I want is just a good lumber. Save me the best lumber you can find.
Right.
Because at that time, when you'd buy they call it a 4 by 18, 30 feet long, that not a single knot on it, and it was a full 4 inches, a full 18 inches. And then he had a shop, and he'd make sidewooden,
Mm-hmm.
he'd make a portion on it.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I was working, I asked him, hey, John, why don't you use that bulldozer to move the lumber sack? He said, oh, it doesn't work, it doesn't have no power. I said, why? I said, does it run? He said, oh, yeah, it'll start right now. But it won't push, doesn't have no power. I said, well, have you adjusted the master clutch? Oh, he told me, he says, I'm going to start you with $1.50 an hour. When I left San Antonio, I was getting 75 cents. So I says, I adjust the master clutch on it. He says, do you know how to do it? I said, yeah. He says, what do you need? So I told him what I needed. He brought them to me. I took the plate off and I adjusted the master clutch that it dig holes in the ground like a weasel. Anyway, he said, you know what? I told you I was going to give you $1.50. He says, I'm going to give you $1.75 an hour. Well, pretty good. So then he says, you drive a truck? I said, yeah, I drove a truck before. He says, well, if you want to on weekends, you can take a load up to Lone Pine. Let's have to work first and go that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
And he says, and then be back here for Monday. He says, I'll pay you all the time that you're gone. I said, okay. So finally I had over $300. I said, John, hold this $300 for me. Oh, in the process, coming home from work one day, about 2 houses from where we were staying, there was a man painting a house. It was vacant. So I went over to it and I started talking to him. And I said, so you're the owner? He said, yes. I said, oh, yeah. So you're going to move in here? He said, no. He says, I'm going to rent it. I says, may I ask you how much are you going to want for rent? He said, well, he says, you seem like you're an honest guy. He says, I'll let you have it for $65 a month. No down payment, no balloon or whatever they call nowadays.
Security deposit.
Yeah. So I says, okay. I says, I'll tell you what, Mr. Hill. I promise you that when I move out of this house is going to be 100% better than it is now. So I uh, I went to a pickle furniture company, and they used to have a sign: used furniture used only once for movie sets. Very reasonable. So I went and looked at them, and I looked at a refrigerator, I looked at this, and I looked at different things. He said, "Oh, good." He said, "Yeah, that'll be only about $700 and something dollars." I said, "Okay, I want it." Well, now I was from Texas, and in Texas we're used to, if you give a handshake, you signed a contract. I shook his hand, and he shook my hand. He said, "Oh, by the way, the secretary just went to lunch, but go ahead and sign here so that she can fill in the rest." So I didn't know better. When I got the furniture, they got sent me what they wanted. Instead of $700, it was
1,500.
1,500. Yeah. So I went to talk to a policeman. He says, "Son," he said, "did you sign a blank contract? Was that filled?" I said, "No, sir." His son says, "I'm sorry to tell you, there's nothing we can do about it. You signed a blank contract." He said, "We're investigating that company, but you're probably stuck." So I said, "Okay, so they were stuck." So I told John, I says, "Hold this $300 for me. I'm going to go to Texas to get my family." "Okay." And I said, "You can give it to me when I get back." So he said, "Okay." So I left. I told my two brothers, "You stay here." I says, "I'm going to go get 30." Well, we were about 200 miles from San Antonio, and I threw a rod on my Buick. So my brother Homer and my father went and told me. A friend of mine that had a body shop, he says, "Hey," well, he says, "what happened?" So I told him. He says, "You know what?" He says, "There's a 1949 Buick right there. The guy brought it in to have it painted, and he never came back. He hasn't moved in 2 years." He said, "If you want to," he says, "I'll sell it to you for $100, but I don't have no title or nothing." I says, "I don't care." The tires on the Buick that I had were brand new,
Mm-hmm.
so I swapped tires and started it and fine. So we I went and bought a used trailer. It looked like the Clampets. Going, we loaded the washing machine that we had just bought from Mom. A couple of items, but I had bought Mom a beautiful, beautiful bedroom set, and she cried, but she sold it. So we hit the road. To make the long story short, it was in the car. Was myself, your grandma, your uncle Jesse, your aunt Zoila, Rachel, Juan, Rosemary, Dee Dee, Diane, and Jesse, my brother-in-law, in the car.
So at this point, you're getting ready to move everybody out. Here in California.
Just
Okay.
moving them back, moving over here. When I pulled into my driveway, Ross, all we had was 11 cents to my name. But I wasn't worried.
Because you had that
I had
money.
$300. So I went to work and I told John, I said, John, I says, I need my money. He said, okay. He says, I'll go to the bank today. So the day was over. I said, John, did you go to the bank? He said, I didn't have a chance to go, but here's $20. I said, I gotta have the money, John. He said, well, I'll go tomorrow. I said, okay, well, at least I can buy milk. Your Memo got sick on me. All she did was cry. She left her sister back home.
Mm-hmm.
The water was different.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different place.
Mm-hmm.
So it was I used to call the neighborhood there the neighborhood of League of All Nations because we had every nationality within the block. But you know something? Some of the black people were the best friends to have.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lady, she was from Hungary, and she sent me food. And a man lived in the back, he was a Cuban. He had just left because of Fidel Castro.
Yeah, that's when Fidel was starting the revolution.
Yeah. So he was a cigar maker. And he used to give me bundles of 50 cigars. Some of the best cigars you could find. And anyway, the second day I went to work, he says, I didn't have a chance to go, John. He says, but I'll get it for you. I'll get it tomorrow. The third day, he said, you know what? I'm sick and tired of you asking me. He says, you're fired. Get out of here. I says, what? He says, you hurt me. You're fired. Raul, Juan, Homer, pick up the tools. Let's go. Oh, no, they can stay. I says, I walk, they walk. So I went straight down to the Labor Board Commission. Because again, I didn't have a very good education,
Right.
but I was quick to pick up on things, you know. So I went to the Labor Board Commission and I told them what happened. And the lady said, just a minute, let me get the investigators. We called him over and I tell him everything. He says, can you be there at 1 o'clock this afternoon? I says, yes. He said, okay, we'll meet you there. So we were there in the apartment we were tearing down at 1 o'clock, and here comes two state cars with the emblem on the side. And they walked in with a bunch of red tags, and they start tagging all the equipment. So the owner comes out and he's mad. He says, what are you doing? He says, what you see we're doing, we're red tagging everything. I need it for work. I know you need it. You owe this man some money. Until you pay that, you don't move no equipment. Well, I was going to pay him right now, and he reaches in his pocket and gets the water bills and gives me the money. Okay, you can take the tags off. But tomorrow morning, be at City Hall at 8:30, and you have your books with you, because we want to go through them. Because I told him, he doesn't take no taxes, he doesn't. So they sent him back to prison.
Oh.
He had done it before.
Ah.
So Then I started looking for a job. Me, Homer, and Raul.
Let's stop again for a few minutes right there.
Okay.